The early morning sun cast a soft golden glow over the bustling streets of Lagos. Vendors shouted prices for roasted corn and plantains, while bus conductors yelled destinations with voices hoarse from overuse. Amid the chaos, a boy no older than 12 stood barefoot on a cracked pavement, clutching a tattered plastic bag that held all his belongings. His name was Tund, and for the past 3 months, the streets had been his home. His father had died suddenly from malaria complications, and his mother, unable to bear the crushing weight of poverty, had left one day and never returned. Tund had learned to survive by doing odd jobs, carrying loads for market women, washing car windshields at busy intersections, and begging when hunger clawed too deep. But there was one thing that brought him comfort amidst his struggles: dance. Whenever life became unbearable, Tund would find a corner of the street, close his eyes, and dance to the rhythms he heard in his head. He danced barefoot, his movements raw yet mesmerizing, like water flowing over stones. The streets were his stage, and though no one clapped, it gave him hope. On this particular morning, Tund had wandered into Victoria Island, an upscale area filled with towering glass buildings and luxury cars. He stood in awe, his dirty shirt clinging to his thin frame, as he watched a group of children his age stepping out of a chauffeur-driven SUV, laughing and dressed in crisp uniforms. A pang of longing stabbed at his chest. Just across the street, behind the gates of a sprawling white mansion, Kola Adeyemi, one of Nigeria's wealthiest men, sat silently by the window. His business empire stretched across oil, real estate, and banking. To the world, he was the epitome of success, a billionaire with power and influence. But behind closed doors, his heart was heavy with grief. His only daughter, Adana, had been paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident 6 months earlier. She was just 10 years old, full of life and laughter before the crash. Now, she barely spoke, spending her days staring blankly at the ceiling of her room. Kola had tried everything: specialists abroad, expensive treatments, therapists, but nothing could bring back his little girl's smile. Her silence haunted him more than anything. That morning, as he sipped his coffee, his gaze drifted toward the street. Something unusual caught his eye: a small boy, barefoot and dirty, was dancing passionately near the gate. There was no music playing, yet his movements were fluid, soulful, and full of emotion. Kola frowned. There was something captivating about the boy. Despite his ragged appearance, his dance seemed healing. Almost magical. Curiosity stirred within him, and he called his driver. "Segan, bring that boy to me," Kola ordered, his deep voice laced with authority. Minutes later, Tund was escorted through the massive gates. His eyes widened as he stepped into the grand compound, staring at the fountains and perfectly trimmed gardens. He had never seen such wealth before. "Baba, please, I didn't steal anything," Tund blurted, trembling with fear. Kola studied him carefully. The boy's ribs were visible beneath his thin shirt, his feet covered in dust and tiny cuts. "You were dancing outside," Kola said slowly. "Why?" Tund hesitated. "When I dance, I forget I'm hungry. I forget that I'm alone." His voice cracked with emotion. Something shifted inside Kola. It had been a long time since he'd heard such raw honesty. "What is your name?" "Tund, sir." Kola leaned back in his chair, thinking. Then, almost impulsively, he made a decision. "Come with me. There's someone I want you to meet." He led Tund through marble hallways until they reached a large, dimly lit bedroom. In the center of the room, propped up on soft pillows, lay Adana. She looked fragile, her small frame swallowed by the bed. Her once bright eyes were dull, staring blankly at the ceiling. "Adana," Kola said gently, kneeling beside her. "I've brought a friend to see you." Adana didn't respond. She barely blinked. Kola's jaw tightened. He turned to Tund. "Dance," he said simply. Tund's eyes widened. "Sir?" "Dance for her." At first, Tund froze. He had never danced in a place like this, under the gaze of someone so powerful. But then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and began to move. His feet glided softly across the marble floor, his arms slicing gracefully through the air. Each movement told a story, of hunger, of loss, of hope fighting against despair. For a moment, the room seemed to breathe again. And then, a sound broke the silence, a small, shaky giggle. Cola's head snapped toward his daughter. Adana's lips were curved into the faintest smile. A tear slid down his cheek as he watched her eyes come alive for the first time in months. Again, she whispered hoarsely. Tan's heart soared. He danced harder, spinning and leaping, ignoring the pain in his blistered feet. By the time he finished, Adana was laughing, softly at first, then louder, until the whole room seemed filled with light. Cola was stunned. No doctor, no therapy, had been able to reach her like this homeless boy just had. Segan, Cola barked, his voice breaking with emotion. Get this boy food. Clean clothes. A place to sleep. As Tan devoured his first real meal in weeks, Cola sat across from him, deep in thought. There was something extraordinary about this boy. Perhaps fate had brought him here. But fate, as Cola was about to learn, often comes with hidden costs. That night, after Tand had been given a warm bath and a soft bed in the servants' quarters, Cola stood at Adana's bedside, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in months. He felt a surge of gratitude toward the boy. Yet, beneath that gratitude, a flicker of unease stirred. Who was Tand, really? Where had he come from? And why did his dance have such a profound effect on his daughter? The questions lingered like shadows in Cola's mind. Unbeknownst to him, outside the mansion's gates, a figure watched silently from the darkness. A man with a scarred face and cold eyes, who knew exactly who Tand was, and who wasn't about to let the boy slip away so easily. The next few days would bring revelations that would shatter everything Cola thought he knew, and force him to make a choice between power, love, and redemption. The following morning, the Adeyemi mansion was filled with an energy it hadn't felt in months. For the first time since the accident, Adana asked to be wheeled outside into the garden. She wanted to feel the sun on her skin and, most importantly, she wanted to see Tand dance again. Tand, now wearing a clean shirt and sandals provided by the household staff, stood shyly before her. When he began to dance, her laughter filled the air like birdsong. Even the housemaids paused their duties to watch, smiling at the miracle unfolding before their eyes. Cola stood a few feet away, his chest swelling with hope. But as he admired the scene, his driver Segan approached with a troubled expression. Oga, there's a man outside asking for the boy, Segan said quietly. He says his name is Alhaji Musa. Cola's brows furrowed. Who is he? I don't know, sir. But, he looks dangerous. Something cold crept down Cola's spine. Bring him to my study, he ordered. Minutes later, Alhaji Musa entered, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a deep scar running across his cheek. His presence was unsettling. He gave a mock bow before speaking. Chief Adeyemi, an honor to meet you, Musa said smoothly. I believe you have something of mine. Cola's jaw tightened. If you mean the boy, he's under my protection now. Who are you to claim him? Musa chuckled darkly. Protection? He leaned forward, his voice dripping with menace. That boy is my property. He dances for me in the streets to earn money. Without me, he would have starved long ago. Cola's stomach churned. He glanced at Segan, who looked equally disturbed. Are you saying you exploit children for profit? Cola demanded. Musa's eyes glinted with malice. I take care of them, for a price. But Tand is special. His dancing brings crowds. People pay to watch. I can't afford to lose him. Cola rose to his full height, his commanding presence filling the room. Listen carefully, he said coldly. Tand stays here. Whatever claim you think you have over him ends now. Musa's smile vanished. You think your wealth can protect you? He hissed. That boy isn't just some orphan you plucked off the street. He knows things that could destroy men like you. Kola's heartbeat quickened. What do you mean by that? Musa only smirked and turned to leave. Ask the boy. But be warned, truth has a way of cutting deeper than lies. That evening, Kola found Tund sitting quietly in the servants' quarters, hugging his knees. Tund, Kola began gently, kneeling beside him. Who is that man? Why does he say you belong to him? Tund's eyes filled with tears. Alhaji Musa, he takes boys from the streets. Makes us dance or steal for him. If we don't bring enough money, he beats us. His small voice broke with sobs. I ran away, sir. I didn't want that life anymore. Kola's fists clenched. The thought of anyone hurting this fragile boy filled him with rage. You're safe now, Kola promised, placing a hand on Tund's shoulder. I won't let him take you. But Tund hesitated, as if holding back something more. There's something else, he whispered. The night I ran away, I overheard Musa talking to some men. They mentioned your name, sir. Kola froze. My name? Yes. They said they were planning something bad. Something about your company. A chill spread through Kola's veins. Suddenly, Musa's cryptic warning made sense. Before he could ask more, Segan burst into the room, breathless. Sir. Men are outside the gate. Armed men. I think they're here for the boy. Kola's world tilted. Get Adana and Tund to safety, he barked. Now! Chaos erupted as staff scrambled to protect the children. In the distance, headlights flared as black SUVs screeched to a halt outside the mansion. Musa wasn't done yet. And Kola was about to discover just how far a desperate man would go to reclaim what he believed was his. The mansion shook with tension as the roar of engines and shouts echoed outside. Armed men stormed the front gate, forcing their way past the guards. The air was thick with fear as maids screamed and scattered, clutching their rosaries and whispering frantic prayers. Kola's mind raced. He had built an empire, faced ruthless businessmen and cutthroat rivals, but this was different. These were not boardroom battles. These men would kill without hesitation. Segan pushed Tund and Adana down a narrow hallway toward the hidden panic room behind Kola's study. Hurry! Segan urged. Don't look back! Adana clutched Tund's hand tightly. Her wheelchair rattled over the floor as tears streamed down her face. Tund, she whimpered, are they going to hurt us? Tund squeezed her hand, his own heart hammering. No, Adana. I won't let them, he vowed, his voice trembling yet determined. Behind them, Kola barked orders into his phone, calling the police and his private security team. But he knew they might not arrive in time. Musa's men were already inside. As they reached the panic room, Tund stopped suddenly. No, he said, shaking his head. If we hide, Musa won't stop. He'll keep coming for me, and for you. Segan frowned. Boy, there's no time for this. But Tund's eyes were steady, filled with a courage far beyond his years. I have to face him, Tund said softly. If he sees me, if I dance for him one last time, maybe I can distract him long enough for you to escape. Segan stared at the boy in disbelief. That's madness. But before he could argue further, Kola appeared, his face pale but resolute. Let him try, Kola said quietly. If that boy has the strength to fight with his feet, then we will fight beside him. Minutes later, the main living room became a tense battleground. Musa entered first, flanked by his men. His eyes scanned the room until they locked onto Tund, who stood barefoot in the center of the marble floor. So, Musa sneered, the prodigal boy returns. Kola stepped forward, shielding Tund slightly. This ends tonight, Musa. You will leave my home and never come near my family again. Musa laughed, a sound as sharp as broken glass. Your money can't buy loyalty, Chief Adeyemi. That boy is mine. He owes me. No, Ten said firmly, stepping out from behind Kola. I don't belong to you. I never did. Musa's smile faltered. You think you can defy me, boy? He growled. Without another word, Ten closed his eyes and began to dance. It wasn't just a dance, it was defiance, pain, and hope woven into movement. His feet struck the marble like drums, his arms slicing through the air like blades. Every spin, every leap told the story of a boy who refused to be broken. For a moment, even Musa's men were spellbound. As Musa's attention wavered, Kola gave a subtle nod to Segan, who quietly ushered Adana toward the back door. But Musa noticed. Stop them, he roared, snapping out of the trance. Before his men could react, police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Musa cursed and turned to flee, but Kola lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The two men grappled fiercely until officers burst through the doors, guns raised. Freeze! Hands up! Within minutes, Musa and his men were handcuffed and dragged away, their reign of terror finally ended. Later that night, the mansion was eerily quiet. The chaos had subsided, leaving behind only exhaustion and relief. Kola sat beside Adana's bed, holding her hand. She was safe, and for the first time in months, she was smiling, not just because of Tan's dance, but because she had witnessed true bravery. Tan stood nearby, uncertain. He had saved them, yet part of him feared he didn't belong in this world of marble floors and glittering chandeliers. Kola rose and walked toward him. You've given me back my daughter, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I can never repay you for that. Tan shook his head. You've already done so much, sir. Food, clothes, safety, that's more than I ever dreamed of. But Kola knelt down so they were eye level. No, Tund. You deserve more than survival. You deserve a future. From this day forward, you are part of this family. I will see to it that you get an education, a home, and the chance to chase your dreams. Tund's throat tightened. But I'm just a street boy. Kola smiled softly. Not anymore. You're proof that hope can rise from the ashes. As dawn broke over Lagos, Tan stood on the balcony, watching the city awaken. He thought of Musa's dark grip on the streets, of the countless other children still trapped in that life. He made a silent vow, one day, he would return, not as a victim, but as someone who could make a difference. Behind him, Adana wheeled herself out onto the balcony, giggling softly. Dance for me, Tund, she said. He smiled and began to move, his feet tracing patterns of freedom on the cool stone. And in that moment, it wasn't just a dance. It was a promise, to himself, to Adana, and to every lost child still waiting for their chance to be seen. Because sometimes, a single act of courage can ripple outward, changing not just one life, but many. And that was how a homeless boy and a billionaire's daughter rewrote the story of despair into one of hope and redemption.